Hey, my more brothers. Been a while. Sometimes you don't really have much to say, even though I always have something to say. Because I've been in and out in Telegram. So I guess me and Edward have been MIA, missing in action for a minute. But I guess it's time to get back on the horse. But over the past, I would say, week or so, there's been this conversation about the space, about the manosphere, about Black people. And every so often, I guess every 6 months or so, there's always this, what about the space? What about the manosphere? What are we doing? Blah, 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 blah. We talked about women and all that crap, right? Even when most of the time, all this stuff going swirling around the Black manosphere is not the Black manosphere, right? It just, when they're doing content, anybody can do content. And anybody that does Black male, female content they always associate with the manosphere. And where half of these people that just came in don't even associate with the manosphere. They just do content. And then they just pile them on top of us and say, ooh, look what you guys are doing. This is not a club. Okay, it's a sphere. A sphere is an environment. Just like YouTube is an environment. YouTube has certain rules and stuff like that, but they're loose. Anybody can come in and out as long as they're not too egregious. Same thing with the Black manosphere. People so-called come in and out, attach themselves to the sphere, to a space. Nothing you can do about that. If you're going to have a space, okay, and it's going to be public, it's going to be online, then you can't control it. So I don't know what people are talking about. What they want to do is control the content creators and make us hammer down on people and slag people. We're not referees. We didn't come in here to be referees. We didn't come here to be judges. We came in here as individuals. We're not in this enclosed room where, there's a doorkeeper, there's a gatekeeper keeping people in and out or kicking people out. It's not like that. And these are young folks with modern mindsets, and they're thinking like they're in the 19th century, which upsets me. But let me get into what I really want to say about this, okay? And this is something that's been bothering me, especially talking to all PhDs, because they're confirming a lot of stuff that I thought for a very long time. And this is something I've been reading just really lately. Once you start digging into the foreground or the underneath layer of the problem with the Black community. It's been written about. It's been hidden. What it is that nobody talks about it. Nobody's willing to talk about it. The Black community or the ADOS people have really deep-seated problems. There's no way that the ADOS could not have deep-seated problems after going through 200 years of slavery and then 100 years of Jim Crow. With, like Moynihan says, 200-300 years of horrible mistreatment. There's no way you can not have deep-seated cultural and psychological damage. And the racism is still not done, man. It still goes on. The trauma is still happening to Black people. It's really deep-seated. The thing is, when they talk about racism, you talk about the boogeyman. Everybody knows about white people. Everybody knows about white slavery, about what they do. The thing is, we don't talk about the defects that this stuff caused, right? About the trauma that's been induced on the whole culture and still goes on. We talk about what's being done, but we don't talk about the effects that the trauma has on us and has had on us generationally. We gloss over it. We wipe it away. Why? Because we don't want to, still to this day, don't want to hold our women accountable about the effects that they allow the trauma to spill out onto us, onto the boys, onto the men. And they blame the men like, you're man. You're not supposed to have trauma. You're not supposed to have this deep-seated effects that are on you. You're supposed to fix yourself and then come back and fix your women. Or you're supposed to sit in this cesspool, this trauma-filled pool, and basically put up with it. Those are the only two things that the Black community talks about. It's even in the manosphere. Now, I have dug some of this stuff out. I have put some of this stuff online. I have brought in other people with knowledge to come in and talk about these deep-seated problems, really deep-seated problems. But the thing is, even the people that argue about it, that fuss about it, their lens, the only thing they can see with their lens that goes on about content is about mating. Who's going to have sex with who? Who's going to be the preferred person to gather women around them? At least with SYSBM, they talk about alternative methods to deal with this problem, which is dating out. Date another culture that don't have the same defects. Opening your options to the point where if you're not treated properly inside your own sphere, inside your own culture, go do something else. And that's shamed. You look at the passport bros, which blows my freaking mind. It really does. Passport bros saying, hey, don't put up with the West. Don't put up with the non-traditional women that you have in your culture right now. Get your passport, go experience something else. Go experience a different kind of woman. Go experience a different kind of dating. If you want a trick, go experience a different kind of prostitute. I don't care. This whole pushback is black men trying to free themselves from these strictures, free themselves from the psychological pain and this trauma-induced psychosis that's in the black community. Find a way to kind of fix themselves. That's what this whole thing is about. Not working 60, 70 hours a week, killing yourself to earn the respect of some chicks that you're never going to have respect from. And I've seen dudes kill themselves, literally working 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week. I have two partners that literally killed themselves doing that shit. And guess what? They didn't get any more respect from their spouses than anybody else. Now, did their spouses love them? From what I can tell, they did. Did their spouses care for them? From what I could tell, they did. But did they respect them anymore? No, they didn't. They got the same bullshit. They got the exact same bullshit that Pookie and Ray Ray got. Because the disrespect and the low-key contempt is built into the culture. And nobody wants to say that. And nobody wants to go back and research why that is. And when you research why that is, you get all this kind of crap that comes back. Even though you can show them back in history where you have, like Clark. Clark told you exactly what it was, why it was, and why it went down, right? The same kind of negative behavior, the negative aspects that he was talking about back then are even more prevalent today than they were when he was talking about it. At least back then, black folks knew they were fucked up. And they knew they had trauma. Because trauma was very plain because it happened to them every day. And they knew where these negative effects were coming from. And they were trying their best to deal with them. But nowadays, the trauma's buried because we don't want to talk about where it came from. We don't want to talk about the negative effects of black people. Really, we talk about the negative effects that black men do. And I just heard a content creator say that about the negative effects. We talk about Derek Jackson and the crap that's going on with him, right? That shit is common in the black community. I do mean common in the black community. And we know it. We think just because Derek Jackson makes millions of dollars and is famous, that he doesn't do the same kind of negative crap that everybody else does in this culture. But nobody wants to talk about why he does it. Oh, Derek Jackson does this and he's doing it. And we laugh at it because it's so common to us. Oh man, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't cheat on my wife. I wouldn't get no other chick. It's so common in our culture that it's not even funny anymore. And I think the reason that I haven't really done very much in the past 2 weeks is I'm getting tired of this stuff, right? Look at what Deion Sanders had to go through down in the HBCU. He had all this stuff that went on down there. He had to deal with black folks and their trauma and their stuff, their black stuff, get paid less, have to do more, had to put up with a lot of negative stuff and a lot of backbiting. And when you leave, you get shitted on. He leaves for Colorado. Within 2 weeks, he gets more cooperation. He gets more help. They make more money in 2 weeks. Maybe it's because it's a bigger school. I'll give him that. In 2 weeks, he's had more cooperation than he had in 2 years at Jackson State. Way more. Because they appreciate who he is and not resent who he is. That's deep-seated trauma that comes out in our culture. Well, I just did help my daughter do a paper called How Do You Deal with Children That Have Trauma-Induced Care? You know, trauma-induced, right? They call it trauma-induced care. How do you deal with children that have incarcerated parents? And you have to use the history of their trauma to inform how you're going to actually deal with the particular patient. We don't do that. That's how come Dr. Johnson talks about John Henryism. It doesn't matter about your history. It doesn't matter what the environment that you're in. It doesn't matter about anything else. You're just supposed to swing that hammer and beat that steam engine. Even though the steam engine, it might lose, the thing is, guess what? It's going to keep running and you're going to die. And the black folks, if you don't deal with this trauma, if you don't deal with this past, if you don't deal with the effects that this system has imposed upon you and still imposing upon you, and actually deal with it, you're never going to fix it. All you doing is reintroducing the same trauma. The first thing they said, you got to stop reintroducing the same trauma over and over and over again. In other words, you got to do something to cut the effects, to stop doing the same things that have got you into this predicament in the first place. Now, passport bros want to leave the West and want to get on the plane and go someplace and find more traditional women. Are they telling the truth? It's not that they hate women. Are they telling the truth? They don't hate the black women they're here with. The thing is that we can't operate the way we want to operate with the material that we have. They have every right and every duty to go someplace and find someplace where they can actually be either happy or successful. And being an expat is no easy road. It's way more difficult than actually being here and dealing with the regular women. It's way more difficult. So why do they do it? What I don't like in these spaces, man, is we really keep telling the same lies and repeating the same trauma that we do on the outside. And we pretend like we're enlightened. And basically, we get glimpses of enlightenment, and then we put it out because we want to stay in our dysfunction. Oh man, if you just be this, and you just earn 100K, and you become a producer, all your problems are going to go away. Man, you know, that's bullshit. And people get mad when you tell them that's bullshit. But nigga, you ain't solved your problem yet. You still on here with the same goddamn problem. If you had Willy Wonka's golden ticket, a way out of this thing, you would have demonstrated it. As always, if all black men uniformly get all together and act the same way, we could fix all this. And there is no proof that if all black men all got together and acted the same way, that it would fix the problem. There ain't no proof. They haven't shown me one organization that has done that, including the Nation of Islam. Including the Nation of Islam. Nation of Islam had the same problems that we got. Islam has the same problems that we got. And I've heard too many guys that have been in and been out and tell me they have the same problems that we got. You got some good women that will follow the rules, will follow the strictures, will actually be good wives, and maybe you have a little bit more success than most. Whereas the black community is gynocracy intense, gynocracy heavy. The Nation of Islam and Islam, black Islam, is gynocracy light. But we don't want to, we can't hold the sisters accountable. Even with black female fuckery, we really don't hold the sisters accountable. We really don't. We really don't. We really don't tell the truth. I discovered the myth of white womanhood, 6 years ago? You know, really, if you really want to know what really transformed Kevin into this mission, the mission that led him to his fame, it was the myth of white womanhood. And he told me about the conversation that he had. Now, I'm going to try to find it. The conversation that he had with his mother and his aunts about the myth of white womanhood and the problems that it caused. And after that, Kevin was a completely different person, at least online, and how he handled this kind of stuff. And that should have been a breakthrough. That should have been the most viewed series on YouTube, as far as black YouTube, because it actually identified what the problems were. Actually identified them. Actually went down and identified them. And if you look through any black sociological book, it identifies the same exact problem that's been there since antebellum slavery. Hell, I just looked at emancipation, right? About antebellum slavery and the Civil War, right? If you look at the basis of the black family, who was in charge? It was the overseer, and then it was the woman. And then the men were interchangeable. They showed you right there on film. It's still that way today. The white man is in charge. He interfaces with the woman. And the black man is interchangeable. I saw that in Devotion. Me and Dr. Johnson were talking about that. I saw that in freaking Devotion. And she was a good woman. She was a great wife. She was supportive. She was protective. She worshiped the ground that this black man walked on. She worshiped him. Even then, she sat down with the white man, said, I need a favor. When he goes overseas, I can't protect him. And I need you to look after him. Like he was a kid. That strong maternal sense, where basically she sit down with a beer talking to a white man like man to man. Nobody talks about that. And we try to infuse that into the discussion. Either it's not seen. Really what happens is you drop it, people say some stuff, and then they run away because they don't know what to do with it because it's outside of their dysfunctional sphere. And we're always going to have the state of the black manosphere because we'll never get to the root of the problem. Even down to when the thing with the politics with Stacey Abrams and Tiffany Cross and them mentioning the black manosphere. They made it about Republican versus Democrat instead of what the actual issue was. Is black men having a voice regardless of who we vote for? At the time, nobody cared who won. Nobody cared if Stacey Abrams was elected governor one way or the other. Nobody really cared. Same thing about the mayor's race. She won. Nobody cares. The thing is, we black men, we want to have a voice. We deserve to have a voice. That was the only issue. We had a problem with that. It's really simple. It's not liberal versus conservative or Democrat versus Republican or whatever, right? It has nothing to do with that. Do black men have a voice? Can black men make steps toward their liberation, steps toward their independence, steps toward their salvation, for lack of a better term? Why are we arguing over this? Either we want it or we don't. Just like Deion Sanders, right? You're not shit unless you're Superman. You're not shit unless you're a poor righteous teacher and you're John Henry. You're going to keep hacking and beating against that mountain until you die. And they're not happy unless you do. Deion Sanders turned the program around. He got a new field in. He got sponsors in. He started a platform to where if they keep it up, if they keep the relationships going, they can actually thrive. He made sure that he started the engine. He got the engine to run. And instead of thanking him for what he did, instead of being appreciative for what he contributed, because everybody, the football team they're not mad at him for the most part. They're shitting on his name. So the next guy that comes in, the next big name that comes in, he's going to see that this is how you guys get down. And nobody fixes the problem. It's about his personality. Nobody fixes the negative behavior. I don't care what he did. Okay. I don't care what they did behind closed doors. Okay. When they come out and as a public face, they shake hands, they thank him for his service, and they let that be gone instead of publicly shaming him. You have women that don't even like football. You know goddamn well you don't like football. They ain't never commented on football before. But when it comes down to this, all of a sudden you got something to say. Oh, you promised to be our savior. You promised to be our God. No, he didn't. You took it as that. We took everybody that comes in that's going to do something positive as your savior, as your Jesus. That's going to die on the cross for you. That's female. That's the gynocratic, matriarchal female church that's still in us that we ain't dealt with. But that because of the induced trauma that we've been dealing with for 300-400 years. And nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about the effects. Nobody wants to talk about getting down to the root of this kind of stuff. Because guess what? It's too easy to blame black men. It's too easy to throw it off on us. It's too easy to do that rather than to fix the goddamn problem. Black men ain't doing shit. They're not working hard enough. They're not killing themselves to fix the black community. Really, that's what you really should say. We need more black men to kill themselves to fix the defects that are in our community. It's really what you want to say. The thing is, you don't train them to do it. At least with soldiers that are going off to die for their country, at least they give them training. At least they train them how to deal with this warfare. At least they give them tools. We don't give our boys shit. We barely teach them to read and write, but we don't even look at their homework. Or if they have homework, we never go down there to at least pick up a phone, talk to their teacher. Even in this advanced electronic age where you can get a hold of anybody, anytime, any place in the world. And we don't admit that we don't care because we love being in our dysfunction and we're so used to it. We're so used to being in this muck and the mire, we really don't want to leave. Hell, even when we're overseas, we're still attached to this muck and the mire because in us, and we don't want to expunge this stuff out of it because I guess that's what makes us unique. Anyway, I've gone on long enough, and I just had to get this out. This was on my mind, and probably wouldn't even record it today, but this had to come out, man. I'm getting kind of tired of it. But if you're not going to fix this, why complain about it? Why complain about the space? Why complain about what people are doing if you're not going to fix it? I ain't seen nan person that complains about the space crack up with nan book. Let's talk to any expert or do any kind of series, any kind of deep dive into where actually what's wrong. It's always pointing fingers. I want you to fix it. Anyhow, that's all I got for this one. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.